I stood in the back row of my son Derek's wedding ceremony, watching the bride walk down the aisle in her flowing white dress. Just as the officiant began to speak, Derek suddenly pointed directly at me and shouted across the 200 assembled guests, "Get out, Dad! You're not welcome here!" Every single head turned. Amber smirked. My chest tightened, but I refused to cause a scene. I walked out in silence, my boots echoing on the stone pathway, holding back a storm of rage and heartbreak. The sun came up over my ranch the next morning, but I had not seen it rise. I had been sitting in my kitchen since 3 in the morning, staring at a cold cup of coffee, replaying that moment over and over in my mind. My son, my only child, pointing at me like I was trash to be removed. The ranch house felt emptier than it had in the 3 years since Martha passed. When cancer took her, Derek had held my hand at the funeral and promised me we would get through it together. Now I wondered if that young man even existed anymore, or if Amber had completely erased him. I looked at Martha's photograph on the mantel. She was smiling in that picture, taken on our 30th anniversary right here on the front porch. We had built this place together. 3,000 acres of Texas ranch land, 40 years of backbreaking work, of drought and flood, of cattle prices that nearly bankrupted us twice. But we had survived. We had built something real. After Martha died, I had thrown myself into keeping the ranch running. It was all I had left of her, of us, of the life we had built for Derek. Every fence post, every barn board, every blade of grass on this property held a memory. And now Derek wanted to take it away. The phone rang at 7 o'clock in the morning. I knew it was him before I even looked at the caller ID. I picked it up. His voice was cheerful, light, like yesterday had never happened. Like he had not just humiliated me in front of everyone we knew. "Dad, hey, we're back from the honeymoon suite. Listen, I need the ranch keys." I sat there, confused. My brain could not process what he was saying. "What keys? What are you talking about, son?" "The ranch keys, the deed, all of it. Amber and I are taking over now. You're moving to the guest house." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. The guest house. The little 800-square-foot cottage at the edge of the property that we used to rent out to seasonal workers. He wanted me to move into the guest house, on my own land. "Derek," I said slowly, "what are you talking about? This is my ranch." "Not anymore," he said, and there was something in his voice I had never heard before. Something cold. "Amber's got plans. Big plans. We're turning the main house into a wedding venue business. Events, receptions, the whole thing. It's going to make us a fortune, Dad. You'll see." My hand gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "Derek, we need to talk about what happened yesterday. You threw me out of your wedding, your own father." There was a pause. Then he said, "Oh, that. Yeah, well, Amber said you'd cause drama. She was right. You were wearing those dirty old boots. You embarrassed her family." "Those were my dress boots," I said. "I have worn them to every important event for 30 years. I wore them to your high school graduation, to your college graduation, to your mother's funeral." "Yeah, well, they look terrible," he said dismissively. "Anyway, we'll be over in an hour. Have the paperwork ready. Amber's dad is helping us with the legal stuff. This is happening, Dad. Either you can be part of it, or you can make it difficult. Your choice." He hung up before I could say another word. I sat there holding the phone, listening to the dial tone, and for the first time since Martha died, I felt truly alone. They arrived 53 minutes later. I heard the sound of a truck pulling up the drive, but it was not Derek's old Ford that I had helped him buy 5 years ago. It was a brand new luxury pickup, gleaming black with chrome accents. The price tag on something like that was north of $70,000. Where had he gotten that kind of money? Derek climbed out of the driver's side, wearing clothes I did not recognize. Designer jeans, expensive boots that had never seen a day of real work, a pressed shirt that probably cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. Amber emerged from the passenger side in a white sundress and oversized sunglasses, looking like she was heading to a country club instead of a working ranch. But they were not alone. 3 more vehicles pulled up behind them. A Mercedes sedan, a Lexus SUV, and another truck. Out stepped Amber's family. I recognized them from the wedding, though I had not been introduced. Her father, a thick man in his 50s with slicked-back hair and a gold watch that caught the sunlight. Her mother, thin and severe-looking with too much makeup. And her brother, a younger version of the father, mid-30s, with the same predatory look in his eyes. Derek was carrying a leather folder as they walked toward my porch. I stepped outside to meet them, and Amber's father smiled at me like we were old friends. "Jose," he said, extending his hand. "Carl Patterson, Amber's father. We didn't get properly introduced yesterday. Shame about that little misunderstanding." I did not shake his hand. "There was no misunderstanding. Your daughter had my son throw me out of his own wedding." Carl's smile did not waver. He dropped his hand and shrugged. "Well, let's not dwell on the past. We're here to talk about the future. Can we come inside?" I did not move from the doorway. "Say what you need to say right here." Derek stepped forward. "Dad, come on. Don't be difficult. We're family now." "Family," I repeated. "Yesterday you told me to get out. Today you want to be family." Amber removed her sunglasses, and I saw her eyes for the first time in daylight. They were cold, calculating. This was not a woman who loved my son. This was a woman who wanted something. "Derek needs to grow up," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "He can't live in your shadow forever. We're giving him a chance to be his own man." Carl opened the folder and pulled out a stack of papers. He spread them out on the hood of his Mercedes, like we were making a business deal at a car lot. "Jose, I'm a real estate developer. Been in the business 32 years. When Amber told me about this property, I saw potential, big potential. You're sitting on a gold mine here, and you don't even know it." I walked closer and looked at the documents. Transfer of deed, power of attorney, estate planning paperwork. My name was already filled in on half of them. "Sign here, here, and here," Carl said, pointing with a gold pen. "Derek takes ownership of the ranch. You move to the guest cottage. We'll make sure you're taken care of. 3 meals a day, medical care, everything you need. You can live out your retirement in peace." "I'm 68 years old," I said. "I'm not retiring, and I'm sure as hell not signing my ranch over to anyone." Derek's face flushed red. "Dad, you're being selfish. This is my inheritance. You're going to give it to me eventually anyway. Why not now, when I can actually use it?" "Because you did not earn it," I said, looking my son in the eyes. "Because your mother and I built this place with our own hands. Because you threw me out of your wedding yesterday, and now you want to take everything I have. That's why." Amber stepped forward, and there was real venom in her voice now. "You embarrassed me yesterday. You embarrassed my family. Derek told me you would be reasonable, but I can see he was wrong. You're just a stubborn old man who can't accept that his son has moved on." "Moved on to what?" I asked. "To you? To this?" I gestured at the papers, at Carl, at the whole setup. "My son worked this ranch with me for 20 years. Now he shows up in a $70,000 truck, wearing clothes that cost more than a month's feed bill. Where did all that money come from?" "That's none of your business," Amber snapped. "It is my business when you're trying to steal my property." Carl's smile finally faded. "Nobody's stealing anything, Jose. We're offering you a fair deal. You keep a roof over your head, you get taken care of, and Derek gets what's rightfully his. But if you want to do this the hard way, we can do that too. I've got lawyers on retainer who handle this kind of thing all the time. Elder stubbornness, undue influence, competency issues." The word hung in the air like a threat. Competency. Derek would not look at me. He stared at the ground, his jaw tight. "Get off my property," I said quietly. "All of you." "Dad," Derek started, but I cut him off. I said, "Get off my property. Now." Amber's mother spoke for the first time, her voice shrill. "You'll regret this. We're trying to help you, and you're too proud to see it." Carl gathered up his papers slowly, deliberately. He looked at me with something like pity. "You've got 1 week to reconsider, Jose. After that, things get complicated. Talk to Derek. Think about your future. Think about what's best for everyone." They climbed back into their vehicles. Derek was the last to leave. He stood by his new truck for a long moment, and I thought maybe, just maybe, he would say something. Apologize. Realize what he was doing. But Amber called his name from inside the truck, and he got in without a word. I watched them drive away, dust rising behind their convoy of expensive vehicles, and I realized this was not over. This was just beginning. 3 days later, the sheriff's deputy pulled up to my ranch. His name was Tommy Briggs, and I had known him since he was in high school. He had that uncomfortable look people get when they have to do something they do not want to do. "Jose, "I'm sorry about this," he said, handing me a manila envelope. I tried to tell them to handle it another way, but they insisted. I opened the envelope right there on the porch. Legal documents. A lawsuit. Derek's name at the top as plaintiff. My name as defendant. The words jumped out at me. Elder exploitation. Undue influence. Mental incompetence. My own son was suing me, claiming I had manipulated him, that I was not fit to manage my own affairs, that I needed a court-appointed guardian. There was also a restraining order. I could not contact Derek. I could not come within 500 feet of him or Amber. If I tried, I would be arrested. The court date was set for 2 weeks from today. Tommy shifted his weight. "Jose, if you need anything, you let me know. This whole thing doesn't sit right with me." I folded the papers and thanked him. After he left, I sat on my porch for an hour, trying to understand how my life had come to this. My foreman, Pete Sullivan, found me there when he came up to the house for lunch. Pete had worked for me for 18 years. He was 52 years old, built like a tree stump, and one of the most honest men I had ever known. "Boss," he said, sitting down in the chair next to me. "I heard something in town this morning. Thought you should know." I looked at him. "Go ahead." "Derek's been around, telling people you're losing it, saying you're confused, that you forget things. He's building a story." I felt my jaw tighten. "What else?" Pete hesitated. "There's a lien on the ranch. $150,000. Bank confirmed it this morning. Loan was taken out 6 months ago." 6 months ago, I said slowly. "I never took out a loan." "I know you didn't. But your signature's on the paperwork." The truth hit me like a freight train. Derek had forged my signature. My own son had committed a crime against me, stolen $150,000, and now he was using the legal system to finish the job. Pete saw my face and put a hand on my shoulder. "We'll fight this. Whatever you need." But fighting was going to cost money I did not have. The ranch had been operating on thin margins for years. Cattle prices were down, feed costs were up, and now there was a lien I had not known about eating into whatever equity I had left. I made calls that afternoon. The bank confirmed the loan. The signature looked like mine, but I knew I had never signed it. The loan officer, a woman named Patricia, who I had known for 12 years, sounded sympathetic, but her hands were tied. The money was gone. Derek had withdrawn it in 3 separate transactions over 6 months. I called the few friends I had left in town. Word had already spread. People were talking, and the story going around was not my side. It was Derek's version. "Jose is getting old. Jose is confused. Jose won't let go. Jose is being difficult." Even worse, Amber had been busy on social media. I did not use those platforms, but my neighbor's daughter showed me on her phone. Amber had posted pictures from the wedding with captions about how heartbroken she was, how her father-in-law refused to support their marriage, how she was praying for his health and well-being. The post had 473 comments, almost all of them sympathetic to her. My sister called from Oklahoma. "Jose, just give him the ranch. You're almost 70. How much longer do you need it?" "I'm 68, I said, "and I built it. It's mine." "You're being stubborn. That's what killed Daddy, you know." Pride. After I hung up with her, I realized how alone I truly was. The community was turning against me. My own family thought I was being unreasonable, and I had legal papers in my hand that could take away everything. I went to see Frank Hudson, the lawyer who had handled Martha's estate. His office was above the hardware store on Main Street, the same place he had practiced for 35 years. Frank was 71, white-haired and weathered, with reading glasses that sat on the end of his nose. He read through the lawsuit carefully, taking his time, making notes on a yellow legal pad. When he finally looked up, his expression was grave. "Jose, this is serious. They're not just trying to take your ranch. They're trying to have you declared incompetent. If they succeed, you'll lose control of everything. Your finances, your property, your freedom. They could put you in a facility. Can they do that? If they can convince a judge you're not capable, yes. And this loan situation makes it worse. If you can't explain how your signature got on those documents, it looks like you're either lying or you forgot you signed them. Either way, it plays into their narrative. But I didn't sign them. Derek forged my signature. Proving that will require a handwriting expert, probably multiple depositions, extensive investigation. We're looking at $70,000 minimum in legal fees. And that's if everything goes smoothly. If it goes to a full trial, double that. I sat back in my chair. I did not have that kind of money. Not with the lien already on the property. "There's more," Frank said. "I made some calls this morning after you told me you were coming in. The county received an anonymous complaint about your ranch. Safety violations. They're sending an inspector out tomorrow. I knew exactly who had made that complaint. And I knew what they would find, because whatever violations existed, Derek and Carl would have made sure they were there." Frank folded his hands. "Jose, I've known you for 26 years. I handled your will when Martha got sick. I know you're not incompetent. But the law doesn't care what I know. It cares what can be proven in court. And right now, they've built a case that looks bad for you. So what do? You fight. We get our own experts. We investigate the forgery. We document your mental acuity. We show the judge this is a scam. But Jose, I have to be honest with you. Even if we win, it's going to cost you almost everything you have left. And if we lose, you lose it all anyway." I left Frank's office feeling like the walls were closing in. The bank was threatening foreclosure on a loan I had never taken. The county was coming to inspect my property for violations I had not committed. My son would not speak to me. The community thought I was either senile or stubborn, and I had 2 weeks to figure out how to save my life's work from being stolen by a woman my son had known for less than a year. That night, I could not sleep. I walked the property in the dark. Every fence line, every pasture, every building. This land was my life. It was Martha's legacy. It was supposed to be Derek's future. Now it was all slipping through my fingers, and I did not know how to hold on. The county inspector arrived on a Thursday morning, driving a white truck with official markings. His name was Gerald Hempstead, a man I had never met before. That was suspicious right there. In a county this small, I should have known the inspector. He spent 3 hours going through my property with a clipboard, taking photographs, making notes. Pete followed him the whole time, watching. When Gerald left, Pete came straight to me. "Boss," he said, "this was a setup. Half the violations he cited didn't exist last week. Someone's been on the property." "What kind of violations?" "Expired permits for the equipment barn. Safety railings on the cattle pens that were supposedly not up to code. Electrical issues in the main house. Septic system supposedly failing. Every single one of them requires immediate repairs or the county shuts us down." "How much are we talking?" Pete handed me the citation. $35,000 in mandatory repairs. Due in 60 days, or the ranch ceases operations. I sat down on the porch steps. Between the loan I had not taken, the legal fees, and now this, I was looking at financial ruin. The bank called that afternoon. The loan was in default. They wanted payment in full or they would start foreclosure proceedings. I explained that I had not signed for the loan, that it was fraud, that my son had forged my name. The loan officer, Patricia, sounded sympathetic, but there was nothing she could do. "Mr. Jose, I understand your position, but we have a signed loan document. Until a court determines otherwise, you're legally responsible. I'm sorry. I had to do something drastic." I called Pete into my office that evening. "How many head can we sell?" He looked at me. "Boss, we sell now. Prices are terrible. You'll take a beating." "I don't have a choice. I need cash." "How many?" "We can move 50 head by next week." "But Jose, that's breeding stock. You'll be gutting your herd." "Do it." Over the next week, we sold 50 head of cattle at prices that made me sick. Good animals that should have fetched $1,500 each went for $900. I lost $30,000 in value, but I got $45,000 in cash. It was enough to pay the most critical repairs and keep the bank off my back for another month. But it was also the beginning of the end. Without those cattle, the ranch could not sustain itself long term. I was bleeding out, and everyone knew it. That's when Frank called with news. "I hired a private investigator," he said. "Guy named Barry Chen. He's good. Expensive, but good. And Jose, he found something." "What?" "Amber's done this before." I went to Frank's office immediately. Barry was there, a thin man in his 40s with wire-rimmed glasses and a laptop covered in stickers. He turned the screen toward me. "Amanda Pritchard," he said. "That's your daughter-in-law's real name. She's used Amber Patterson for the last 3 years, but before that, Amanda Pritchard. And before that, Amanda Cordova. And before that, Amanda Simmons. How many times has she been married?" 4. You're looking at husband number 5. Each time, same pattern. She targets single fathers with sons in their 20s or 30s. Men with assets. She marries the son, isolates him from the father, takes the assets, and moves on. Husband number 1 was in Nevada. He owned a small chain of grocery stores. His son got cut out. She got a settlement of $1.2 million in the divorce. Husband number 2 was in California, restaurant owner. She walked away with a commercial property worth $800,000. Husband 3 was in Arizona, car dealership. She took 3 vehicles and $60,000 cash. Husband 4 was in Georgia. Divorced after 11 months, took his boat and his savings, about $200,000 total. I stared at the screen, at the pictures of Amber with different last names, different hair colors, different men, but always the same cold smile. Her family? I asked. Part of it. Carl's her real father, but he's been involved in multiple real estate scams across 4 states. The mother and brother are enablers. They work as a team. They find the mark, study him, learn his weaknesses, and exploit them. And Derek? Barry shook his head. Your son's a victim, Jose. They studied him for months before she ever approached him. Knew about Martha's death, knew about the ranch, knew he was vulnerable. She played him perfectly. I felt sick. Can we use this? Can we show Derek? We can try, Frank said. But Jose, he's married to her now. People don't want to believe they've been conned. The evidence might not matter if he's not ready to see it. We have to try. That night, I sat in my dark kitchen with the investigator's report spread across the table. Photographs, marriage certificates, divorce decrees, police reports from complaints that had never gone anywhere. This woman had destroyed 4 families before mine, and she was about to make it 5. I called Derek's number from a payphone at the gas station, violating the restraining order but past the point of caring. He answered on the 3rd ring. Son, I said, I need you to listen to me. I had someone look into Amber. Her real name is Amanda. She's done this before, 4 times. She's a con artist, Derek. She's using you to get to the ranch. There was silence on the other end. Then Derek's voice, tight with anger. You hired a private investigator? You're spying on my wife? I'm trying to save you. She's going to take everything and leave you with nothing. I have proof, Derek. Documents, photographs, everything. You're insane, he said. You're actually insane. Amber told me you'd try something like this. Making up stories, inventing conspiracies. Dad, you need help. In the background, I heard Amber's voice. Is that him? Tell him we're filing additional charges. Derek spoke into the phone again, and his voice was like ice. Dad, you just violated a restraining order. If you contact me again, you're going to jail. Stay away from me. Stay away from my wife. Leave us alone. He hung up. I stood there in the gas station parking lot, holding the payphone, and for the first time in my life, I felt my age. My chest hurt. My hands shook. The stress of the last 3 weeks hit me all at once, and I could not catch my breath. I drove myself to the county hospital. The emergency room doctor, a young woman named Sarah Patel, ran tests and told me I had not had a heart attack, but I was close. Severe angina brought on by stress. My blood pressure was 185/110. Mr. Jose, she said, looking at me with concern, whatever is happening in your life, you need to find a way to reduce stress. Your body cannot take much more of this. If you don't make changes, you will have a stroke. Do you understand? I understood. I was dying slowly, killed by my own son's betrayal, and there was nothing I could do about it. They kept me overnight for observation. I lay in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the beep of monitors. Down the hall, someone's family was gathered in a room, laughing, talking. I was alone. Martha's voice came to me, a memory so vivid I could almost feel her hand in mine. Jose, that boy is your legacy. Don't ever give up on him. But how do you save someone who does not want to be saved? How do you fight for someone who sees you as the enemy? I closed my eyes and felt something I had not felt since Martha died. I felt defeated. I was released from the hospital the next morning with instructions to avoid stress, which would have been funny if it were not so tragic. Frank picked me up because Pete was running the ranch, and we went straight to Barry's office. The private investigator had been busy. His desk was covered with documents, photographs, printouts of bank statements. He looked like he had not slept. I found more, he said without preamble. A lot more. He spread the evidence out. Bank records showing Derek's account receiving payments from Carl Patterson starting 8 months ago. Not after the engagement. Before. $20,000 paid in 5 separate installments of $4,000 each. Money deposited every 6 weeks like clockwork. Next, Barry showed me text messages. He had somehow accessed Derek's cloud backup, something about a security flaw he would not explain. The messages were between Amber and Derek, going back 9 months. Before they were even engaged, before Derek had introduced her to me. The text told a story. Amber coaching Derek on what to say to me, planting ideas, building a narrative. Tell him you need more responsibility on the ranch. Make him feel guilty about not trusting you. Another message. Your father is holding you back. A real man would stand up to him. And another. Carl says if you can get the deed transferred, the investment money is guaranteed. $200,000. That's our future. There were dozens more. Amber slowly poisoning Derek's mind against me, week after week, month after month. Barry pulled up an email. This one was from Carl to Amber, dated 3 months ago. Kids eating out of our hand. Wedding venue story is working. Father's the stubborn type, but we've handled worse. Once we get him declared incompetent, property transfers to the son signs over to us, we flip it to developers for $3 million. Your cut is $500,000 as agreed. I felt cold reading it. This was not just a con, it was a calculated, well-planned theft. And my son was the tool they were using to do it. Will this hold up in court? I asked Frank. Some of it, he said. The bank records are solid. The text messages might be admissible depending on how they were obtained. The email definitely is. This shows premeditation, conspiracy, fraud. The problem is Derek. What about him? He's an adult. He chose to take their money. He chose to turn on you. Even if we prove Amber's a con artist, we have to prove Derek was coerced, not just stupid. That's a harder case to make. I looked at the photographs of Amber, the fake names, the trail of destruction across 4 states. I have to show him this. He has to see what she is. Frank shook his head. Jose, you're under a restraining order. You can't go near him. Then he has to come to me. That night, I sat on my porch and thought about everything I had learned. Derek had been taking money for 8 months. He had been manipulated, yes, but he had also been willing. He had chosen Amber over me. He had chosen money over family. And yet, he was still my son. Around midnight, headlights appeared on the ranch road. A truck was coming, driving fast. It pulled up to my house, and I recognized it. Derek's new luxury truck. He got out, and even in the porch light, I could see something was wrong. He had not shaved. His clothes were wrinkled. His eyes were red. I stood up, but did not move toward him. The restraining order hung between us like a wall. Dad, he said, his voice shaking. I need money. $50,000. I need it by Monday. I felt my heart sink. What happened? The investment fell through. Carl's development deal. He needs more capital or the whole thing collapses. I already put in $80,000. If I don't come up with another 50, I lose everything. Where did you get $80,000? The loan. The ranch loan. Dad, I need the money. So this was it. The truth, finally spoken out loud. Derek had taken the $150,000 loan, given $80,000 to Carl's fake investment, spent the rest on the wedding and the truck, and now Carl was back for more. Son, I said quietly, come inside, please. Let me show you something. Derek shook his head violently. No. No more games. No more tricks. Do you have the money or not? I have information. About Amber. About Carl. About what they're doing to you. I reached for the folder of evidence Barry had given me, but Derek lunged forward and knocked it out of my hands. Papers scattered across the porch. I don't want to hear it, he shouted. I don't want your conspiracy theories. I want the money. You owe me. You owe me for all the years I worked this ranch for nothing. You owe me for Mom dying and leaving me alone with you. The words cut deeper than any knife. Derek bent down and started grabbing the papers, looking at them in the porch light. I watched as his hands found the bank statements, the text messages, the photographs of Amber with different names. He stared at them. His hands started to shake. What is this? He whispered. The truth. Amber's real name is Amanda. She's been married 4 times before you. She and her father are running a con. They're going to take the ranch, take everything, and leave you with nothing. Derek looked at the messages, his messages, the ones where Amber had coached him what to say. He looked at Carl's email about flipping the property for $3 million. No, he said. No, she loves me. We're married. Derek, I said gently, look at the dates. Carl was paying you before you even got engaged. This was planned from the beginning. It was a loan. It was a family loan to help us get started. $50,000 loans are not paid in installments, and family loans do not come with text messages coaching you to manipulate your father. He dropped the papers like they were on fire. You're lying. You made these up. You're trying to destroy my marriage because you can't stand to see me happy. I had the investigator's number on it. Call him. Verify it yourself. Derek looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something break. He looked younger suddenly, lost, like a little boy who had just realized the monster under the bed was real. Then his phone rang. He pulled it out, looked at the screen. Amber, he answered. His voice was different now, uncertain. Hey. Yeah, I'm at the ranch. No, he doesn't have it. Amber, I found some papers here. There's stuff about you, about Carl. What's going on? I could not hear her response, but I watched Derek's face. Watched as she worked her magic, her manipulation, her lies. Watched as she pulled him back from the edge of truth. No, Derek said. No, you're right. He's making it up. He probably had them forged. I'm coming home. Derek, wait, I said. Please, just listen. But he was already walking to his truck, already leaving, already choosing her over the truth. Get the money, Dad, he called back. 50,000, or Carl's lawyers are going to bury you. He drove away, tires spitting gravel, and I was left standing on my porch surrounded by scattered evidence that my son refused to see. An hour later, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. I answered. Amber's voice, cold as winter. Stay away from my husband, old man. I know who you are, Amanda Pritchard. Nevada, California, Arizona, Georgia. 4 husbands, 4 cons. You're not getting away with this one. There was a long silence. When she spoke again, the pretense was gone. No more sweet daughter-in-law act. Just pure venom. Prove it in court, she said. But you won't make it to court. That chest pain you had? Stress is a killer at your age. Keep pushing, and you might not wake up one morning. These things happen. The threat was clear. My life was in danger now. You have a choice, she continued. Sign over the ranch, walk away, and Derek gets to keep his dignity. Or fight us, lose anyway, and watch while we destroy him completely. We'll drain every penny he has, max out his credit, ruin his name. When we're done, he'll have nothing. Not the ranch, not money, not even his reputation. Is that what you want for your son? What I want is for you to leave him alone. Too late for that. We're married, and marriage means access to everything. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign the papers. You're going to tell the judge you were confused. You made a mistake. You're going to drop the forgery investigation. And in return, I'll divorce Derek in 2 years and leave him with something. Maybe the truck. Maybe 50,000. Something. But if you fight me, I'll make sure he ends up broken and bankrupt. Your choice, Jose. The ranch or your son. You can't have both. She hung up. I sat in the dark, the phone still in my hand, and realized I was facing an impossible decision. If I fought for the ranch, Derek would be destroyed. If I gave up the ranch, everything Martha and I had built would go to a con artist who would sell it to developers. There was no winning here, only degrees of losing. But one thing was clear. I could not let Derek go down with this ship. Whatever happened to me, whatever happened to the ranch, I had to find a way to save my son, even if he hated me for it. The courthouse was packed on the morning of the competency hearing. In a small Texas county, this was the biggest show in town. Jose Martinez versus Derek Martinez. Father versus son. Old ranch hand versus the future. I wore my best shirt, pressed pants, and yes, my dress boots. The same ones Derek had been embarrassed by. Let them judge me. These boots had walked every inch of my ranch for 40 years. Judge Barbara Thornton presided. She was 62 years old, stern-faced, a former prosecutor who had seen every con and lie there was. I hoped that experience would help her see through this one. Derek sat at the plaintiff's table with his lawyer, A slick man named Gregory Marsh who had been flown in from Houston. Carl was paying for him, that much was obvious. Marsh wore a $3,000 suit and had an assistant carrying his briefcase. Frank sat next to me with our folder of evidence. We had spent the last week preparing, organizing, building our case. But we both knew this was going to be ugly. The courtroom was full of people I knew. Neighbors, friends, townspeople who had come to watch the spectacle. I saw the way they looked at me, half with sympathy, half with suspicion. Was I really a stubborn old man losing his mind? Or was I a victim? Marsh stood up to make his opening statement. He painted a picture of me as a man who could not let go, who had become irrational and paranoid, who was accusing his daughter-in-law of impossible crimes simply because I could not accept that my son had grown up and moved on. Derek took the stand. He would not look at me. "Mr. Martinez," Marsh said, "your father has made some serious accusations about your wife. How does that make you feel?" "Heartbroken," Derek said, his voice steady. "My dad used to be my hero. But after Mom died, he changed. He became controlling. He accused Amber of terrible things. He hired private investigators to spy on her. He's obsessed with keeping control of the ranch, even though he promised it would be mine someday." "Did he ever show signs of confusion or memory loss?" "Yes. He would forget conversations we had. He would repeat himself. Sometimes he would call me by the wrong name, call me Tom, which was his brother's name. His brother who died 30 years ago. That was a lie. I had never done that. But how do you prove a negative?" Then Amber took the stand. She wore a conservative blue dress, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back. She looked like a Sunday school teacher. Marsh asked her to describe our relationship. "I tried so hard to have a good relationship with Jose," she said, her voice trembling. "But he resented me from the start. He said I was not good enough for Derek. He criticized everything about me. My clothes, my family, my education. At the wedding, he showed up looking disheveled. When Derek asked him to leave so we could have a special day without his negativity, Jose became threatening." Another lie. But the gallery murmured sympathetically. "Has he ever threatened you directly?" "Yes," she said, and pulled out her phone. "He called me last week and said, and I quote, 'I know who you are. You're not getting away with this.' I took it as a death threat." I felt Frank tense beside me. She had baited me into that call and recorded just the parts that sounded menacing. Then it was our turn. Frank stood up and the temperature in the room changed. "Your Honor," he said, "what we have here is not an incompetent old man. What we have is a sophisticated operation that has been used successfully 4 times in 4 different states. And the Martinez family is victim number 5. He entered the evidence into record. The photographs of Amber with 4 different names, the marriage certificates, and divorce decrees. The pattern of marrying sons of wealthy fathers, isolating them, taking assets, and moving on." The gallery erupted in whispers. Judge Thornton banged her gavel. Frank called Barry to the stand. The investigator laid out everything he had found. Names, dates, amounts. The trail of destruction Amber and her family had left across Nevada, California, Arizona, and Georgia. Then Frank showed the bank records. Carl's payments to Derek. $20,000 paid months before the engagement. Finally, he showed the text messages. Derek's face went white as Frank read them aloud in court. "Tell him you need more responsibility on the ranch. Make him feel guilty. Your father is holding you back. A real man would stand up to him. Carl says if you can get the deed transferred, the investment money is guaranteed." And the email from Carl to Amber. "Kids eating out of our hand. Your cut is $500,000. The courtroom went silent. Every eye turned to Derek. "Mr. Martinez," Frank said quietly, "did you receive $20,000 from Carl Patterson before your engagement?" Derek opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Amber. "Answer the question," the judge said. "Yes," Derek whispered. "But it was a loan." "A loan for what?" "For the wedding. For us to get started." "Did you tell your father about this loan?" "No." "Why not?" "Because Amber said he would not understand." Frank pulled out the loan documents, the $150,000 loan against the ranch with my forged signature. "Mr. Martinez, did you forge your father's signature on this loan document?" The courtroom held its breath. "I did not mean to," Derek said, and his voice broke. "Carl said it was okay. He said my dad would have signed it anyway, that we were just speeding up the process. He said the ranch was going to be mine eventually, so it did not matter. It was not yours yet, Frank said. And this is a felony. Derek looked at his hands. I know. Did you use this money to pay Carl Patterson for his investment scheme? Yes. $80,000. And what were you getting in return? A wedding venue business. A partnership. $200,000 in startup capital. Frank turned to Amber. Miss Patterson, is there a wedding venue business? Amber's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled. Answer the question, Judge Thornton said. Amber's mask had finally cracked. Her face was hard, angry. There was going to be. But Jose ruined it by being difficult. Where is the business plan? Where are the permits, the licenses, the documentation? Silence, Frank continued. Because according to the county clerk's office, no business license has been filed, no permits requested, no legal entity created. There is no wedding venue business, is there? There never was. It was a lie to get Derek to steal from his father. Amber glared at him, but said nothing. Derek stood up suddenly from his chair. He looked at Amber, really looked at her, maybe for the first time. Is that true, he asked. Were you lying? Amber turned to him, and for just a second, I saw her real face. The predator beneath the mask. Then she forced a smile. Derek, baby, they're twisting everything. We're going to be fine. Just trust me. But Derek was looking at the evidence, at the photographs of her with different names, at the text messages where she had coached him like a puppet. Nevada, he said. You were married before. In Nevada, that was years ago. It does not matter now. 4 times, Derek said, his voice rising. You've done this 4 times. You married 4 other men and took their money. Carl stood up from his seat in the gallery. Derek, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself. But something had broken in Derek. Maybe it was seeing the evidence in black and white. Maybe it was hearing the text messages read aloud and realizing how manipulated he had been. Maybe it was simply that the lies had finally piled too high. He turned to Carl. You paid me $20,000 to turn on my father. I invested in you, Carl said smoothly. In your future, you paid me to steal from him. Derek's voice echoed through the courtroom. You paid me to forge his signature. You paid me to throw him out of my own wedding. The judge banged her gavel. Order! But Derek was past order. He lunged toward Carl, and it took 2 bailiffs to hold him back. You destroyed my life, Derek shouted. You destroyed my family. Amber stood up, mask completely gone now. Don't you dare blame us. We gave you an opportunity. You were a coward living in your daddy's shadow. We gave you a chance to be somebody. By stealing from him? By lying? By forging his name? You were willing. You took the money. You made the choice. Because you manipulated me. Because you lied to me. Because you made me believe my father was the enemy when it was you all along. Judge Thornton stood up. Everyone in my chambers. Right now. The gallery was in chaos. People were standing, talking, pointing. I sat there, watching my son have a breakdown in court, and felt my heart breaking for him. In the judge's chambers, it was quieter, but no less intense. Derek sat in a corner chair, head in his hands, crying. Amber and Carl stood with their lawyer, whispering urgently. Frank and I stood by the door. Judge Thornton looked at all of us with disgust. I've been a judge for 19 years, she said. I've seen a lot of ugly things, but this might be the ugliest. Miss Patterson, you and your father are facing multiple felony charges. Fraud, conspiracy, elder abuse, forgery. Mr. Marsh, I suggest you advise your clients to cooperate. Carl's lawyer whispered to him. Carl looked at me with pure hate, but he nodded. We're willing to settle, the lawyer said. Full restitution of all funds. Complete withdrawal of all lawsuits and claims. Our clients leave the state permanently. In exchange, no criminal prosecution. Judge Thornton looked at me. Mr. Martinez, that decision is yours. I looked at Derek, still crying in the corner. My son. My only child. The boy I had raised. The man I had tried to teach. The person I loved more than anything in this world. What happens to Derek? I asked. He's a victim here, the judge said. No criminal charges against him. But Mr. Martinez, Derek did commit forgery. That's a serious crime. If you want to press charges against him, that's your right. Derek looked up at me, and in his eyes I saw the little boy who used to follow me around the ranch. The teenager who had held my hand at his mother's funeral. The man who had been broken by people who saw him as nothing more than a tool. "No charges against my son," I said. "He's been punished enough." The settlement took 2 hours to finalize. Carl had to liquidate assets to return the $150,000. Amber filed for an annulment, claiming fraud. She and her family had 72 hours to leave the state and could never return to Texas. Derek lost everything: the truck, the money, his dignity. But he did not lose his freedom. When we finally walked out of that courthouse, the sun was setting. Derek stood on the courthouse steps, looking lost. I walked over to him. "Dad," he started, but I held up my hand. "Come home," I said. "Just come home." He followed me to my truck, and we drove back to the ranch in silence. 2 days after the court hearing, Derek had not spoken. He moved back into the guest house, the same cottage he and Amber had wanted to put me in, and he had not come out except to use the bathroom. Pete brought him food, left it on the porch. Most of it went untouched. I gave him space. What else could I do? The boy had been through hell. His marriage was annulled. His dreams were shattered. He had learned that the woman he loved had been using him. He had realized he had betrayed his own father for money that never existed. That kind of trauma needed time. But on the third morning, I could not wait anymore. I made coffee as the sun came up, the way Martha used to make it, strong and dark. I poured 2 cups and walked across the ranch yard to the guest house. I knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked again. "Derek," I said. "It's me. I have coffee." The door opened. My son looked 10 years older than he had a week ago. He had not shaved, his eyes were hollow, and he wore the same clothes he had worn to court. He took the coffee cup without a word, and we sat on the porch steps together, watching the ranch wake up, cattle moving in the east pasture, birds starting their morning songs. The same view I had watched for 40 years, the same view Derek had grown up with. Finally, he spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. "Dad, I need the ranch keys." My heart stopped. Here it was again. The same words. After everything that had happened, after all the pain and lies and betrayal, he was asking me for the keys again. I turned to look at him, and I must have had something in my expression because he quickly added, "Pete said there's a break in the north fence. I want to fix it. I thought maybe I could start helping again. If you'll let me." The relief was so intense I almost laughed. He was not asking to take over. He was asking to help, to work, to earn his way back into the life he had tried to steal. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the key ring, the keys to every building, every gate, every lock on the property. 40 years of my life on a single metal ring. I handed them to him. Derek took them, his hands shaking. He started to turn away, probably to go fix that fence and try to hide from his shame and work. "Derek," I said, "look at me." He turned back, and I saw tears in his eyes. I took a deep breath. Everything that had happened in the last month, all the pain and betrayal and heartbreak, came down to this moment. I could say a lot of things. I could lecture him. I could remind him of his mistakes. I could make him feel worse than he already did. But I thought about Martha, about what she would say if she were here, about what kind of man I wanted to be. I looked my son in the eyes and said 4 words, "You're still my son." Derek's face crumpled. The keys fell from his hands onto the porch boards. He collapsed forward, and I caught him. This grown man, this 32-year-old who had tried to steal everything from me, sobbed in my arms like a child. "How can you forgive me?" he choked out between sobs. "After what I did? After I threw you out of my wedding? After I tried to take your ranch? After I believed her instead of you? How can you possibly forgive me?" I held him and let him cry. When he finally quieted, I said, "Because that's what fathers do. We forgive. We love. No matter what." We sat there on that porch for an hour, maybe more. The sun climbed higher. The ranch came fully awake around us, and slowly we started to talk. Derek told me everything. How Amber had approached him at a bar in town 14 months ago. How she had seemed perfect, understanding, supportive. How she had slowly started planting ideas about me being controlling, about the ranch holding him back, about needing to take charge of his own life. How Carl had presented himself as a father figure who understood business in a way I never could. How the money had made Derek feel important, needed, valued. He told me about the fights they had, the ones nobody saw. How Amber would scream at him if he mentioned wanting to include me in their plans. How Carl would threaten to pull out of deals if Derek did not follow through. how trapped he had felt, caught between the family he had been born into and the family he thought he was building. "I'm so sorry, Dad," he said. "I'm so sorry. I know. I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not. But you're getting it anyway." "Why?" I looked out at the ranch, at the land Martha and I had built. "Because forgiveness is not about deserving. It's about love. And I love you. I always have. I always will." Over the following weeks, Derek threw himself into ranch work. He was up before dawn, working until dark, learning everything I had tried to teach him over the years, but that he had been too proud or too foolish to accept. He fixed fences, repaired equipment, moved cattle, mucked stalls. The physical labor seemed to help him, gave him purpose, let him feel like he was earning back his place. He did not talk much, but he was there, present, sober, clean, slowly becoming himself again. Money was still tight. The lawsuit had cost us. The repairs Carl had forced us to make had drained our savings. The cattle I had sold could not be easily replaced, but we were surviving. One evening, about 6 weeks after the court case, Derek and I were sitting on the porch after dinner. He had been quiet all day, and I could tell something was on his mind. "Dad," he finally said, "I want to pay you back. Every cent of that loan, the $150,000. I don't know how long it will take, but I'll do it." "Derek, we got the money back in the settlement." "I know, but it's not about the money. It's about me making this right. I need to do this. For me." I nodded. "All right, you can work it off. Standard ranch hand wages." He smiled, the first real smile I had seen from him in months. "It'll take me about 12 years at that rate. Then you'd better get started." We sat in comfortable silence, and I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Peace. 4 months after the court case, Derek met someone. Her name was Sarah, and she was a third-grade teacher at the elementary school in town. She came to buy fresh eggs from us, and she and Derek started talking. She was nothing like Amber. She was genuine, kind, a little shy. She had no interest in the ranch, except as a place where Derek worked. She liked him for who he was, not what he had. Their relationship developed slowly. Derek was cautious now, wounded, afraid to trust. But Sarah was patient. She met me, sat on the porch with us, asked questions about the ranch and actually listened to the answers. She made Derek laugh again. They got married 2 years later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Derek asked me to stand with him at the altar. When he said his vows to Sarah, I saw tears in his eyes, but they were happy tears this time. Real tears. Not the manipulated emotions Amber had manufactured. 3 years after that, they had a daughter. Derek called me from the hospital at 2 in the morning. "Dad," he said, his voice full of wonder, "it's a girl. She's perfect. We want to name her Martha, after Mom. If that's okay with you." I cried. Standing in my kitchen at 2 in the morning, I cried harder than I had since Martha's funeral. "It's more than okay," I told him. "Your mother would be so proud." Derek runs the ranch now. The right way. Not because he stole it or manipulated me or had it signed over in some legal scheme. Because he earned it. Because he learned it. Because he spent 5 years working beside me, learning every fence line, every water source, every quirk of the land and the cattle. When I finally did sign over the deed, it was because he was ready. Really, ready. He and Sarah live in the main house now. I moved to the guest cottage, by my choice this time. It's quieter there. I like it. Martha's picture is on my mantle, and I talk to her sometimes, tell her about her granddaughter, about how Derek turned out okay in the end. Little Martha is 3 now. She follows me around the ranch the way Derek used to when he was small. She asks me questions about everything. Why are cows that color? Where does the water come from? Can I ride the big tractor? I see Martha, my Martha, in her eyes. I see Derek before the world got complicated. I see the future of this ranch, the legacy we built, continuing into another generation. People in town still remember the court case. Sometimes they ask me about it. They ask why I did not press charges, why I let Amber and Carl walk away, why I forgave Derek so easily. The truth is, it was not easy. Forgiveness never is. But I realized something through all of that mess, something important. I did not care about revenge. I cared about my son. Amber took his money, his dignity, his peace of mind. but she could not take his future. Not if I refused to let her. You see, when someone tries to destroy your family, the greatest victory is not crushing them. It's saving what they tried to take from you. I got my son back. That's worth more than any ranch, any amount of money, any satisfaction I might have gotten from watching them go to prison. I learned that love is not weakness. Love is the strongest force we have. Love is what brought Derek home. Love is what healed him. Love is what rebuilt what hate had torn down. The ranch survived. My son survived. Our family survived. In the end, that's all that matters. Sometimes Derek and I will be working, fixing a fence or moving cattle, and he'll stop and look at me. "Dad," he said once, "why did you say those 4 words? Why not I forgive you or welcome home?" I thought about it. Because you needed to know that nothing you did could change who you are to me. You're still my son. Always were. Always will be. That's not conditional. It's not something you earn or lose. It's permanent. He nodded, and we went back to work. That was 5 years ago. The ranch is stronger now than it was before all this happened. We've rebuilt the herd, paid off the debts, even expanded into some organic beef programs that Sarah researched. Little Martha helps feed the chickens every morning. Derek has taught her to ride on the gentlest horse we have, an old mare named Sunshine. Life is good. Not perfect, but good. The scars are still there. Derek still flinches sometimes when someone mentions weddings. He's still overly cautious about money, about trusting people. But he's healing. We're all healing. And every morning, when I walk across the ranch yard and see my son working beside his daughter, teaching her the same things I taught him, I think about those 4 words. You're still my son. 4 words that saved us both. 4 words that proved love is stronger than betrayal. 4 words that rebuilt a family. Sometimes the greatest revenge is not destroying the people who hurt you. It's living well, building something they could not break, holding on to what matters most. And what matters most is family. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to forgive someone who betrayed you deeply? Have you ever had to choose between justice and mercy? What would you have done in my situation? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this message about forgiveness and family. And if you want to hear more stories about real people facing real challenges and finding their way through, make sure to subscribe to this channel. There are so many more stories to tell. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for giving me your time, your attention, and your compassion. I hope it reminded you that no matter how dark things get, love and forgiveness can light the way home. May you and your families find peace. May you hold tight to the people who matter. And may you always remember that love, real love, never gives up. Take care of each other out there.